You know, when a social movement just blows up in the headlines, it always feels like it came out of absolutely nowhere, right? But what if I told you that what we're seeing is just the very last frame of a long, incredibly deliberate film? Well, today, we're going to grab the remote, slow down the tape, and see how change really happens.
So let's just ask it straight up. How do they really begin? We see the protest, we see the hashtag, this sudden explosion of public energy. But is that the actual start? Or is it just the end of a long, hidden process? Let's dive in.
So what we see looks like a sudden explosion, a spark that catches fire. But what's actually happening behind the scenes is much more like a strategic marathon. It's a long game of planning, of logistics, and just this unwavering conviction.
And to really get it, we've got to slow things way down. I want you to imagine we're watching a recording of history. We're going to hit that playback speed button and drop it to 0.75. See, at this speed, you can start to see the individual frames, all the careful steps that are normally just totally invisible in the blur of the news cycle.
Okay, so at our new, slower speed, these are the 5 key frames that pop into focus. First, there's the grievance. Then you've got the core group. That's followed by strategy, then the narrative, and finally, the legacy. This, right here, is the blueprint for a movement.
So let's start with frame 1. This isn't about going viral. It's about finding the core injustice. See, before you ever have a crowd, you have this deeply felt, often private frustration that's just looking for a voice.
A successful movement never really starts with a vague complaint. It has to crystallize around a specific grievance that crosses a line, something that isn't just wrong, but is intolerable. And that, right there, that's the difference between just a problem and a true call to action.
So, how do you actually make it a call to action? Well, you use what organizers call a frame. Think of it like a lens that people see the issue through. A really good frame connects with you emotionally and logically, and it transforms some complex policy problem into a simple, powerful moral imperative. It's the thing that makes someone else's problem feel like your own.
All right, let's move on to our next section and see how this thing starts to build. Because a powerful idea is, well, it's just an idea until a team and a plan actually give it life. This is the move from the back room right to the front lines.
Now, this is so crucial. People talk about the kitchen cabinet. Before you can even dream of a million-person march, you need a handful of really dedicated people. This core group, they are everything. They build the movement's DNA, its values, its goals, and, maybe most importantly, how decisions are going to get made. Without that solid foundation, a movement can just collapse under its own success later on.
But, a vision without a map, it's just a dream. This is where that core group has to get tactical. They have to shift from the why to the how. What are they actually going to do to apply pressure and force a change?
And one of the most powerful tools in their entire toolkit is something called the dilemma action. This is just genius-level strategy. You design a protest, or a boycott, or some other action that puts your opponent in a total no-win situation. They can either give you what you want, or they can react, say with the heavy-handed crackdown, that just makes them look terrible and actually builds more support for your cause. It's like a strategic checkmate.
Okay, so you've got your grievance, you've got your core team, and you've got your strategy. So how do you go from a tiny group to a massive movement? Let's look at the next frame, scaling through story. This quote, wow, it just gets right to the heart of it. Growth isn't just about shouting louder. It's about making it feel safe and even valuable for other people to join in. When you see someone just like you taking a stand, the perceived risk of jumping in drops way down. And the social reward, that feeling of belonging to the cause, it goes way up. And that is how a narrative truly takes flight. And that brings us to our final and maybe the most important frame of all. You've got the momentum, the crowds are in the streets, now what? This is the hardest part, making it actually last. The key here is the pivot. The energy of a protest is temporary. Real, lasting change only happens when that energy gets channeled from the streets into the halls of power. It's all about turning that passion into policy, turning slogans into actual laws. This is the moment a movement becomes a permanent part of history.
I mean, this just says it all, doesn't it? The goal isn't just to make a lot of noise. The goal is to become the force that actually directs the course of society.
So the next time you see a movement that seems to just erupt overnight, remember to slow down the tape. Look for the frames. Look for the grievance, the core, the strategy. And ask yourself, what movements are being meticulously built right now at 75x speed, just waiting for their moment to play?